before I start just gushing about how much I love Cathy Glass's latest book, I do want to give one constructive point and something that you need to be aware of before you read this. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the actual development of the narrative. I know it always sounds weird using the word narrative when you're talking about a memoir, but it is what it is. There is one thing that I thought was exceptionally misleading. Publishers tend to do this a lot, and it really, really irritates me. So this book is, of course, called An Innocent Baby, and there was a tagline on the cover: "Why would anyone abandon little Darcy-May?" Well, I don't know why they would do it, because she was never abandoned at any point. This book, Darcy-May features heavily, because the book is actually about her mother, who is a 15-year-old girl, in fact 14 at the time of giving birth. The book is completely about her issues, but Darcy-May as a child is a young baby who was living with Cathy, I think when she was 2 days old, straight out of the hospital, no health complications, a very happy child. She never seemed grisly or anything. Nobody abandoned her, absolutely not. Ignored her, yes, but, that's completely different. And there is nothing in this that would make this a sad story about Darcy-May as a young baby. So I feel like the publishers thought, well, we'll put a young baby on the front because it's one of the characters, if you like, and it will sell more copies. But it's absolutely nothing to do with this baby. The action, the emotive parts, the bits that make you want to read on, nothing to do with Darcy-May. So I feel like the publishers have made a very poor choice with that because it's very misleading, it's false advertising, it's false marketing. And I get annoyed with that because they do it more and more frequently. And interestingly, I prefer the foster carer books about older children, at least children who can talk, because I find that it's more involved. The action's a lot better because the children can reveal things, the children can disclose certain information, they can act out if they're misbehaving or have behavioural problems. When it's about a baby, the baby doesn't really do much. So I feel like they made a very poor decision with that from every angle. Now that I've got that out of the way, if you are still interested in reading this, even though it's not about a baby, even though there is a baby in it, but the baby is not the emotion, I will say that's brilliant. So I can't say too much, but I will say something else as well. Do not read the little bit that comes before the first chapter. I don't know if it's called the foreword. I'm recording this on my phone. My copy is on my Kindle. But the foreword, or whatever it's labelled in this book, ruins the suspense. Because Cathy Glass says that, she explains basically that she was really angry at a certain person because it ruined Hayley's life. Hayley being the teenage mother of Darcy-May. And as soon as I read that, I knew exactly what had happened. It was very obvious, so skip that. And if you don't read that, it will be a lot more suspenseful, a lot less predictable, and I believe a lot more enjoyable. I realise I'm seeming very negative about this, but I feel like there were a lot of poor decisions made on the publisher's part, and I don't know how they didn't see any of this. But once I got past the bad title, the bad cover, well, it's a very cute cover, but it's not accurately representing this. And then the spoilery forward, the rest of it was brilliant. To make a long story short, Cathy begins to foster this, I think, 2-day-old baby called Darcy-May, and her mother, the 14-year-old Hayley, wants nothing to do with this child, to the point where she is kind of in denial that she's given birth. And nobody knows who the father is. Nobody knows how this 14-year-old girl, who dresses really demurely and isn't, she's not an extrovert, she doesn't drink, she's not a wild child, they don't know how this happened. But she won't speak. But then, I was trying to see if this was a spoiler, but it's not really a spoiler. It's what the entire book is about. Hayley goes to stay with Cathy, but also with Darcy-May. She's still there. And there is a lot of concern about how Hayley will cope with living with her baby that she doesn't ever acknowledge. But then also Hayley begins to disclose some things from her very recent past. And they're very troubling things, very worrying things. Quite quickly the police get involved. And Hayley's mental state is not great either. So there is, my heart was in my mouth quite a few times when I thought, is she going to do something? Is she going to disclose something else? How bad is this going to get? And I will say it gets pretty bad. There are 2 points that I thought were pretty shocking. One is a text message that is sent to Hayley through the night. I won't say any more than that, but it's from her key worker, or her former key worker, who sends her a text message. I really want to know more about that situation. And also a box with something inside of it. Again, I hope you know what I mean if you've read it. I'm sure you'll agree that that was a pretty shocking moment, and certainly shocking for Hayley, who was the recipient of that episode. And it gets quite emotional after that, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good, very well written, didn't spot a single typing error. I just feel like it's a very strong story, very emotional, and I don't know why they felt they had to push this sweet innocent baby angle to try and sell more copies, when actually the narrative itself is so emotional and gripping and full of quite a lot of twists and turns that they didn't need to do that. And I can understand why. Babies sell things. That sounded weirder than I meant it to. But people, we all like to read, to be shocked by fascinating stories of babies who have had a rough start in life, and then hopefully who go on to stay with foster carers and blossom and flourish and do fantastically well. But Hayley's story is so much more important than Darcy-may's, and I think it's a disservice to her. Obviously her name's not Hayley, all of the identities are changed of course, but I think it's a real disservice to her to try and use Darcy-may to sell copies of this book when Hayley's story is a lot more important at this stage, a lot more emotional, a lot more moving, and for other people who may be in similar situations or who may suspect that somebody else is in a similar situation to Hayley, it's a lot more important. And I'm really pleased with how the story was told. I think it was sensitive, I think it was, tactful, and also shocking. I think it's very difficult sometimes to tell a shocking story effectively without being offensive or even pussyfooting. But actually this one is done very well. So once you get past that spoilery forward, everything else is beautiful. I love Cathy Glass's books. I've read obviously every single one. I'm now at the stage where I'm just, tapping my toes and twiddling my thumbs waiting for the next one. The next one's apparently set at the beginning of the pandemic. So I'm not actually looking forward to it that much because I don't really want to read about the pandemic. I'm trying to forget that this is reality. But at the same time, I know it's going to be quite a different story. And I genuinely don't know what to expect from it or the kind of problems Cathy would face as a foster carer. So I'm really looking forward to it in that respect, but quite nervous. Either way, I would recommend An Innocent Baby without question. Just don't expect a story, a sob story, an emotive memoir about a baby. Because apart from a few hiccups, Darcy-may is she's doing very well. Hayley is the one who should be the main focus here, and also my cat who just meowed behind me, if you heard that. It's brilliant. It really is brilliant. The publisher's made some bad decisions, but ultimately, I'm really pleased with it.